Arc builds are extremely strong this season, so in this one I want to give you a different take on how you can play the Arc Hunter. This build is honestly some of the most fun I've had on my Hunter in a very long time. As you saw from the thumbnail, you're going to be able to spam every single one of your abilities all the time, while also giving yourself a ton of super energy in that process. If that wasn't enough, you're also going to have the ability to stun every single champion alongside having extremely strong ad clear and even really good single target damage. Pretty much every single one of your abilities is getting buffed in some sort of way in this build, and you're going to be able to take advantage of all of that all the time. So if you want to switch things up and not run things like Assassin's Cowl, I would highly recommend giving this build a try, because it is going to do you well in every single piece of content. Now before we jump into the breakdown, if you all would like to see an infographic of this build so you can go along with it while I go over it in the video, be sure to head over to Mobalytics. I will link everything down in the description and you can check it out over there. But alright, let's jump right into it, and let's start off with none other than our abilities, since this is going to be the main part of the build. Let's go on and get the gameplay loop out of Gambler's Dodge and Combination Blow out the way, because most of you probably know about this by now. However, if you don't, let's take a look at our dodge, and we're going to be running the Gambler's Dodge. So this dodge is going to allow you to completely refill your melee ability whenever you dodge your enemies. This is extremely strong paired with certain melees, and in combination with Combination Blow, pun intended, you're going to be able to actually refill that dodge energy whenever you get a melee kill. Now Combination Blow not only just refills your class ability energy when you get a melee kill, you will also get a temporary increase to your melee damage, and this can stack up to 3 times. So the flow of this is that you want to get a melee kill, dodge, get another melee kill, dodge, get another melee kill, dodge, and you can just keep on going, because you're going to be able to chain these abilities back and forth infinitely. Now you can also take advantage of things like Lethal Current. So after dodging, your next melee attack has an increased lunge range, jolts the target, and creates a damaging aftershock. Damaging any jolted target with melee attacks also blinds them. So obviously with the flow of that playstyle, you're always going to be dodging, which means you're also going to get that increased melee lunge range. You're also going to jolt your targets with your melee, and you're going to create that damaging aftershock to kill even more ads. This makes your melee very strong for ad clear, and with the stacking damage that Combination Blow already provides, it makes it extremely strong for single target damage as well. This is all around one of the best setups you can do on any class in the entire game in my opinion, and it is even a little bit better because I did forget to mention the Combination Blow will also restore a small amount of health when you get a melee kill. So your melee is doing insane single target damage, insane ad clear, healing you, and it's also going to be refilling your dodge, which can also refill your melee, and you have infinite abilities on both of those. And the final thing to note about your melees is the fact that when you hit a jolted target, you will blind them. What's cool is that jolt will stun overload champions and blind will stun unstoppable champions, so you pretty much have 2 ways now to stun champions just through your melee. But now obviously your melee and your class ability is not the only thing we're going to worry about. We need to talk about our grenades. We're going to be running the skip grenade. Alone, this grenade is definitely not the greatest. It's more so of a PvP grenade, and even in that, it's still not the best thing you can run. But over in PvE, it really doesn't stand up against any of the other grenades that you can run. However, we're obviously going to be buffing that and making it a strong grenade. We're going to be doing that with things like Spark of Shock. So your arc grenades jolt targets. So now you're basically turning that almost single target tracking grenade into a grenade that will act clear like crazy, because you are going to be able to jolt everything. Those seekers will go out, and every single seeker that hits an enemy, it will jolt targets, and the continuous damage on those jolted targets will chain lightning everywhere, and it makes it a very strong act clear grenade. Now the reason we're specifically going to be running the skip grenade is because we're also going to be taking advantage of our exotic, the Shinobu's Vow. This has the exotic perk New Tricks. Improves skip grenade, and you gain additional skip grenade charge. Skip grenade returns energy when it damages enemies. So this exotic is actually going to make your skip grenades aggressively track a lot more. Also give you an additional skip grenade charge, so you have 2 grenades in total, and every single time your skip grenade damages an enemy, it will refund some grenade energy. Obviously having 2 grenade charges and the fact that it's going to be refunded is going to be extremely nice for constant being able to spam your grenade. And like we said earlier, with the skip grenades continuously doing damage, that's also going to proc jolt on top of giving you the ability energy back now. So Shinobu's Vow pretty much just buffs your skip grenade, and it just turns it into an absolute beast. Now to further help out with getting this grenade energy back, we're also going to be running Spark of Ion. So when we defeat a jolted target, it will create an Ionic Trace. Ionic Trace is going to give you a chunk of ability energy back every single time you pick them up, and since your grenades are always jolting enemies, you're always going to be able to get some extra grenade energy back. A thing to note is that your melee will also be able to jolt jolt enemies. And if you run something like Volt Shot on one of your weapons, your gun can even jolt enemies, and all of those can proc Spark of Ions and constantly feed you this ability energy back. The other thing is Spark of Discharge, so arc weapon final blows have a chance to create an Onyx Trace. You don't have to run this if you don't want to. I run this just because I'm running a arc weapon already, but if you want to run any other fragment, you absolutely could do that. Spark of Amplitude is nice, so you can make some more orbs of power. Spark of Beacons is also really good, so when you're Amplify, if you're in an arc special, you can blind targets. Even things like Spark of Feedback could be good since you're playing into your melee, so you can make more melee damage. All of this is kind of up to you. I just like to run this since I'm running a arc primary, so I can make even more Onyx Traces, so I can further play into the ability to spam my skip grenade even more. But now that we've said jolt a million times in this video, let's take a look at our next aspect, flow state. So defeating a jolted target makes you amplified. While you're amplified, your dodge recharges more quickly, you are more resilient while dodging, and your reload speed is greatly increased. So now every time you defeat these jolted targets, you're now also going to become amplified. You could also become amplified by just getting rapid arc weapon kills as well, but this gives a way so every single one of your abilities can make you amplified, and you're pretty much amplified 24/7. But what's really cool now is that the fact that when you're amplified, when you dodge, you are actually more resilient to damage, which makes you even more tanky since you can dodge all the time anyway, and your reload speed is going to be greatly increased. So if you are rocking a Volt Shot weapon, this just means you can reproc Volt Shot even faster now. This aspect pretty much just buffs everything that was already strong in your kit even better now, and it also lets you stay amplified all the time. But now, since flow state is giving you that damage reduction, we also want to take a look at our last fragment, and that is Spark of Resistance. So while surrounded by combatants, you are more resistant to incoming damage. This just means when you're surrounded by enemies, you're going to be more tanky now. Since this build heavily plays into your melee, that's obviously going to be nice, and even harder in-game content, just being more resilient is the best thing that you can get so you don't die. And then finally, we have our super Gathering Storm, which is a great super for doing some boss damage. What you want to do is throw this on any boss that you're fighting as soon as the damage phase starts, and over time you're just going to easily rack up some extra super damage. And it's also not terrible for ad clear since it will jolt nearby targets, but I would honestly always use this on bosses or things like champions just so you can secure a kill. You are going to be able to feed a bunch of super energy back, so you can use these kind of whenever you want to, since you're always going to have it pretty much whenever you need it. Now, stat distribution for the build, I highly recommend 100 resilience. Again, you always want that damage reduction. This will give you an extra 30%, and you could just live a whole lot easier. I would also highly recommend 100 discipline. Since you're already going to have infinite dodge and melee, you don't need mobility or strength, so putting this in discipline will let your grenade charge a whole lot faster, and pairing that with everything we've already went over and what's more to come once we get into mods, you're going to be able to spam your grenade just as much as your dodge and melee. If you have any extra stats, recovery is probably going to be your best bet just so you can regen some health over time, but even then that is not the greatest thing because your melee is already going to be healing you anyway once you get melee kills. And now for weapons, like I was kind of talking about earlier, this is pretty much all up to you. I do like to run Nation of Beasts, especially with talks of hand cannon buffs coming next season. I am absolutely in love with this thing, having Dragonfly and Volt Shot. The Oculus SMG is also really good, Delicate Tomb's good, Cold Heart's good, and obviously if you're running those arc special weapons, I would highly recommend taking Spark of Beacons over Spark of Discharge. The only thing I would recommend is obviously to have a nice DPS weapon so you can pair that with your Gathering Storm to do a lot of damage, but make sure you're taking an anti-barrier weapon. Things like Arbalest, Wish Ender, or just anything from the seasonal mod is going to be extremely nice because your kit alone already has the ability to stun, overload, and unstoppable. So the only thing you really need is anti-barrier, and you can take it in literally any content you want to. It's really, really cool. And now for our artifact perks, these actually do play a very vital part. You have things like Lightning Strikes twice, so after throwing an arc grenade, gain increased grenade recharge rate for a short time. Arc final blows extend the duration of this benefit. Since you're going to be spamming your double slip grenades all the time, this is going to further help increase getting that grenade recharge rate back so you can spam them even more. Things like shock and also arc final blows while amplified summon a burst of lightning that damage and jolts targets. This is also a really nice benefit to have since you're mainly doing arc damage in this entire build. You're now going to be able to cause this lightning strike that will also jolt targets. It does an okay amount of damage, but the main thing is you can just jolt more enemies for even more ad clear. Things like electric armor is also really strong, so gain damage resistance while amplified. Since you're amplified all the time, you're always going to be getting damage resistance now, which is very, very nice, and even amped up, so staying amplified longer while your arc subclass is equipped. You don't really have to run this, but you might as well take it anyway, so you could just buff your amplified timer up even more. And things like Thunderous Retort actually can help. This is going to give you some more super damage when you activate your super when you amplified or critically wounded. The problem is this specifically says it lasts until the end of super activation, so this just means when you throw your Gathering Storm out, the super activation has ended. It's just sitting in the boss. While it's in the boss, it's not actually getting that damage increase. but you still get a little bit on the initial cast, and you don't really have anything else you want to take, so you might as well just put it in there anyway. But let's jump over into mods, and let's first start off with our helmet. We're going to be running a harmonic siphon so we can make orbs of power on rapid arc weapon final blows. Since arc is our subclass, that is what's proc in harmonic siphon, and since we're mainly going to be running arc weapons anyway, you're just going to make orbs now. Orbs are good for armor charge, extra super energy, proccing some other mods, and they also help your teammates out. Now we're also going to be running ashes to assets, so whenever we get grenade kills, we will get some extra super energy. This is going to be nice again because we're spamming grenades all the time anyway, so we're going to be able to get a ton of super energy from those grenade kills. And finally, for our helmet, we're going to be running a dynamo, so whenever we use our class ability near enemies, we gain some extra super energy. Again, since we can melee dodge all the time, dynamo is always going to be proccing over and over again on itself, and this is just going to feed a little bit of extra super energy to your super so you can throw those gathering storms even more often. Now for our arms, I'm going to be running a heavy-handed, so whenever we get a melee kill, we will make an orb of power. Since we're going to get a ton of melee kills in the first place, this just means we can make a lot of orbs. And to help out with that orb generation, we're also going to be running a firepower, so whenever we get grenade kills, we'll make an orb of power. So now your grenade, melee, and weapon can all make orbs, which are going to be extremely strong for this build because we're going to be taking advantage of grenade kickstart. So whenever we fully expend our grenade energy, we gain some grenade energy back. So this has a flat rate it gives you, but it is also based on your armor charge. The more you have, the more grenade energy you get back, and since you're making orbs all the time, you're always going to be at max armor charge, which just means you will get the max benefit out of grenade kickstart with the amount of armor charge you have. Now for your chest piece, I do like to run a charged up, so this will actually increase my armor charge stack by 1, so I can have 4 instead of 3. This is going to heavily play into buffing that grenade kickstart even more, so you can spam those grenades even more often. And then for the other mods, I would definitely recommend just taking some resilient base mods and just change these out for whatever content you're going into. Now for my boots, I do like to run a recuperation so I can get some health back when I pick up an orb of power, also a innervation so I get my grenade energy back when I pick up an orb of power, and a absolution so I will get all of my energy back when I pick up an orb of power. But obviously your melee and your dodge don't really matter at all. The thing is though, if you run double innervation, you actually will end up getting less grenade energy than if you were just to run an absolution alongside an innervation. So that's why I like to run absolution and innervation paired together, because you will be getting the max grenade energy back that you possibly can with 2 mods. And then finally for my class item, I do run a bomber, so whenever I dodge, I will get some grenade energy back. Since we're going to be dodging all the time, we're getting some super energy now on top of some grenade energy. I like to run a powerful attraction, so whenever I use my class ability, I'll pick up orbs of power around me. So when you're getting those melee kills, making orbs everywhere, orbs are going to be everywhere, so you can dodge everywhere now. You're always going to be picking these orbs up with this. You're going to be replenishing your health. You're going to be getting all your energy back. It is just very, very strong. And now the final thing is Reaper. So whenever we dodge and get a weapon kill after we use the class ability, we'll also make another orb of power. So this is just another way to make orbs. Since we're dodging all the time anyway, we might as well opt into this to make even more orbs, and we can pick them up again with our dodge, and you can kind of see how everything just plays into each other and everything just plays super well into the build. So as a recap, again, you're going to have infinite abilities. You're going to be able to make orbs with all your abilities. You're going to get a ton of damage resistance. You're going to have a great super. You're going to be able to add clear like crazy with jolt. You're going to have onyx traces and orbs coming out everywhere to further help with your ability regeneration, and your dodge is going to be extremely powerful because it can pick orbs up for you alongside providing you a bunch of other benefits. And finally, if you are running a anti-barrier weapon, you have access to deal with every single champion in this entire game, and this is just overall a very, very strong and very, very fun build to play. Now, if you were curious about my transmog, this is what I'm running. I opted in to take the ornament for Shinobu's Vow, so I tried to make a very like armor themed look. I think I did a pretty good job. It definitely gives that vibe off, and it's also blue for arc. So if you want to make your hunter look like this, be sure to copy this down, and I hope you all enjoy it. But all right, I think that's going to do it all for me. Let me know what you all think about this build in the comments below. Have you been running a build similar to this? Have you just been running Assassin's Cowl? Do you want to change it up? Maybe try something like this out. This build is a ton of fun, and it kind of makes you feel like a warlock a little bit with all the grenade spamming going on. However, I really hope you all enjoy it, and if you did, consider subscribing and dropping a like. But just know that watching the video means way more than enough to me, and just that every single bit of support from you all is truly appreciated. Thank you all so much for watching this one, and have a great day. Peace.